All right, friends who ramble. New show, new title, same host. We're just going with a different format moving forward, okay? I'm sure if you were following along with the league, some of the things that went on over the course of the off season. So, I think a lot of those are patched up. I just wanted to take the show in a different direction, kind of just rely on myself and my own schedule and build it around that. So, I'm doing my own thing. We'll see what other type of content pops up throughout the season, but I'm looking forward to it. I think we're just, I like this new schedule I'm going to rock with. We're going to do every 2 weeks. I feel like it's kind of easiest for everybody, right? We don't need a weekly hour plus long episode. I feel like there's only so many things you can talk about. And I think that just straight reactions to the previous week of fantasy football can be a little boring. So I figure let's let a couple games be played. Let's do every 2 weeks. That gives us more to react to, more time for storylines to develop, and different things. So I want to try and keep this short. Just do a couple topics. Definitely want to touch on the league. That's what it's all about. So, we're going to see how it goes moving forward. I'd love to mix in some more guests. I want to get more people on the league involved. I don't want to just be me and Pete and then the occasional guest and the same couple guests every time. So if I could get everybody on this, that would be great. I'd love to have representatives from each team to make an appearance at some point over the season. So we'll see where that goes. As always, we are brought to you by Easy Peasy Moving and Service. We are brought to you by Sundog Multimedia. We're very grateful to keep them on as sponsors with the new program. So let's get into it. So I think the biggest league storyline, I should say, right now, probably starts with George and Igor's trade. So I can't comment much. I know that I do the split personality thing. I'm the commissioner, I'm the owner, but it is an ongoing investigation. And these things can take time. They can take, days, weeks, months, maybe up to a year. So I'm not sure when any sort of announcement's going to come. I'm not sure what's going to come of it. I do know that they're, maybe struggling to cooperate a little bit. So we'll see how, what comes from that. But yeah, I mean, in hindsight, maybe it looks a bit ridiculous because I think that between Corum and Kelsey combined, they have like 10 touches through 4 games total. If I knew that Travis Kelsey was totally washed, I might have flipped it around and started clowning George. I didn't realize that Kelsey was so bad. They traded away Kittle for Ben Sino, who's not getting any snaps, and they got a future pick, and Kittle's like tight end two through 2 weeks. So, I guess they had to try and make something up. They had to make a move. Uh, hasn't really worked out for them so far. And I mean, on the other side, I wouldn't really say it's worked out for Igor yet either. I mean, Corum had 8 touches in garbage time last week. They were getting absolutely blown out. But besides that, I mean, it's been all Kyron Williams in that backfield. So, I mean, it's kind of funny to look back on it now and realize that trade was like a whole nothing burger, and it's probably going to make zero impact on the league. But I mean, I still stand by that at the time. I mean, yeah, we didn't know that Kelsey was this damn bad, but Igor was just kept saying, "Oh, well, would you have rather done this trade or this trade?" It's not about that because honestly, I would have rather done neither. I don't necessarily think that Henry is like a desirable dynasty asset, and it seems like Igor, his goal is to get younger and not get better. So, why take that boost in points right now when you're trying to just get worse and younger? And they definitely accomplished that with this trade. So kudos to them, I guess. But I thought that all the proposed deals that they had were bad, and when that's the case for me, at least, I say, okay, I'm not going to trade him now. Then, if I think that a guy is worth more, I'm gonna hold on and let him show that, and then I'll just make another move. I mean, okay, maybe he just knew that Kelsey would come out and get like one target against the Bengals or something like that. But at the same time, it's Travis Kelsey, and it's like I don't know why people are so eager in weeks 1 or 2 to just get off of these veterans when it's like you can just hold on to them. You know how injuries happen, and we saw it happen a ton last year. Those are guys that I think are the best to flip at the deadline. I think rookies you can get away with moving early, especially if somebody's really into a guy and maybe you're not. But I think vets, you might as well let it play out, let them get their touches because in the offseason, vets are so cheap because everybody's so dynasty brain. Once we're in the season and teams are trying to win, those are the guys that people want to get. People don't want to go after Ben Sino at the deadline. But, if Travis Kelsey does start to heat up a little bit, all of a sudden he becomes a much more desirable piece. So I guess my statement on the actual trade itself is that right now it's looking like it's just a net zero for both. maybe even somehow a loss for both, maybe the first lose-lose trade in fantasy history. But yeah, I still stand by it. I just don't think Igor was getting any good offers. I don't know why he was so pressed to get rid of Travis Kelce, but I guess congrats. He got rid of washed Kelce for a backup running back, third round rookie pick. Whatever. Good for him. Uh, I was more shocked by the reaction. I mean, these might be the three most sensitive people in the league. I mean, George, he's like the ultimate dish it but can't take it guy, right? I mean, one thing I noticed is that I think he's shorter than maybe he presents online. And, I'm not gonna act like I'm 6'3" or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of complex in play there. Because he loves pointing the gun at people, calling them out, calling them dumb, doing all that. But the moment that that gun gets pointed back at him, he just starts to lash out. He was saying nasty, nasty things. I thought we were just busting balls over a fantasy trade. And he was coming at me personally and, coming at my team and saying all this. Apparently, just because you haven't won a championship, and we saw it last year, right? This was like the same playbook you ran with Pete. You're just not allowed to comment on anything. And, if your entire value of your life comes from your fantasy success, then I'll let you have it. Okay. Because if this is all you got going on, I got a lot more going on offline in real life. So it's like, my personal worth doesn't come from, whether or not I have a dynasty championship that came at a time, what, 2 years, 2 years into the league where, everybody was kind of focused on building a dynasty team and him and McMorrow. And we give McMorrow a ton of shit for the Mickey Mouse championship. I think 10 years from now, we're going to look back at that two pinch championship and feel the same thing. It was only a year after. Teams were not catching up at that point. When you drafted more veteran minded, those three teams, McMorrow, Two Pins, and Big Brain, that's how they drafted. All of a sudden, yeah, of course you're going to win championships. But now that the league has caught up and some of those rookies that people were maybe overdrafting at the start are starting to become veterans, we're seeing that they're suddenly not as effective against the league. I mean, McMorrow's a bottom dweller. Big Brain, they continue to choke and they've, regressed every season. And kind of the same thing with Two Pins. It's like they were so dominant in year two, and then it's just been down. They were, they split the championship in year three, first round exit last year. And now all of a sudden they're coming into it and they're just kind of a middle of the road team. So yeah, I mean, if that's how George wants to play it, then I guess good for him. He won a championship when nobody else was really trying early on. But we'll see if he can actually compete in this era. He hasn't shown the ability to do so just yet. But you need irrational people around you in life. It makes things entertaining. It makes you feel, like, okay, if I'm ever feeling like I'm crazy or stupid, I just remember, oh, well, George said this or he did that. I mean, this was a guy that did not like Stephon Gilmore on the Pats, and Gilmore ended up being a cornerback, winning the Defensive Player of the Year. So, I mean, those are the types of takes that you get. George thought that Mac Jones starting in week one meant that he was automatically a good pro. Mac Jones is terrible. He's now a backup for a bad quarterback down in Jacksonville. So, I mean, that's the guy that you're, taking seriously if you do take a guy like that seriously. And I guess it's easy to think that he's smart when he's, co-managing a team next to Joe. I call him Lenny. For those who've seen Of Mice and Men or read the book, I know Joe hasn't. If he started, maybe he's still on page one, dragging along each word with his finger or anything like that. But, Joe's just like a nice, simple-minded guy, probably a century ago, maybe even, 5 decades ago. That's a kid that would have been sent to a home by his parents early on. Maybe he got a visit on Christmas and his birthday and never really be heard from again. But I mean, this is a guy, he thinks he's smart because he got his doctorate at the fucking Fall River YMCA. Oh, thank you, Dr. Joe. You recommended stretching to improve my mobility. So it's nice though. It's nice that people like him can find a spot in society and be productive members instead of like I said, what would have happened probably a century ago. And then Igor, I don't want to go too hard on Igor. I mean, he's easily the most sensitive of the bunch. You know how those people are. But yeah, I mean, what was it? 2 years ago, I said that his family party was boring, and he started attacking my physical appearance. He was texting, calling me, begging for an apology, threatening to leave the league if I didn't apologize. So I did because I'm the bigger man, uh, metaphorically, physically, all that stuff. So I don't want to go too hard on him. It's sad to see somebody spiral. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of mental illness in play here. So, if that's all it takes, in fantasy football to get him to just have a complete meltdown, there's probably bigger factors at play. So I'm going to take it easy on him. I don't want to say too much. So I'll leave it at that. We'll see what the investigation finds. I'm not too sure. Like I said, it does sound like they're maybe refusing to cooperate. So I don't know how the league will treat them in that case, but that's really all I can say on this matter. So moving forward, let's before we get into the next topic, let's just hear from a word from our sponsor. As always, we are brought to you by Sundog Multimedia. Sundog is an online communication and social media company. What started as a personal tool has since evolved into something much bigger, allowing users to communicate, research, and discover things that impact their lives and daily decisions. Sundog will collaborate with you to build and execute a modern yet nimble social media strategy by utilizing innovative and traditional media principles. Sundog is a proud supporter of the Stop Soldier Suicide Foundation. You can follow them on Instagram at Sundog_multimedia. That is Instagram at Sundog_multimedia. So one topic I wanted to get into, I kind of want to do maybe some league drama, get off an NFL take, and then just get into, some reactions from what we've seen in our league. But a question that I keep thinking is, because like 3 years ago, I felt like we were entering this new era, this new great era of quarterback play. And then a few years later, I don't think that we're there anymore. I mean, we're only 3, 4 years removed from what was billed as like an all-time great quarterback class with Lawrence and Wilson and Mac Jones and Justin Fields and who am I forgetting? Who's the fifth one? There's a fifth guy in there. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Trey Lance. Trey Lance. Top 3 picks there, Fields and Mac Jones rounded out the top 15. That was supposed to be like the greatest quarterback class of all time. Now 4 of them, I believe, are second string at best. Trevor Lawrence did get his extension, but he's not living up to that hype just yet. I mean, he was billed as the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was pretty damn good. Andrew Luck came in and turned that Colts franchise around after Peyton Manning had left. They won, I don't know what, they won 1 game the year that he was gone. And he brought them back and he brought them to the playoffs. And every year that he was healthy, I'm pretty sure they got better and better and better each year. They added a win. They went 1 round further in the playoffs. And then ultimately he ended up calling it quits early. But these last few years we've been seeing these quarterbacks come in and it just doesn't seem like they're as ready. And I think we're realizing the results of a regression in that quarterback play. And I'm sure it starts early, but from what we can see, it definitely starts at the college level where all these guys are taking snaps in the shotgun or in the pistol formation. They come into the league and they don't know how to take snaps under center. It's not that they're not comfortable doing it. They literally don't know how to do it. They have to go down there. They have to learn how to, put their hand right on the center's gooch. They have to learn the footwork to drop back. They don't know how to do that. And you need to be able to take snaps under center to be a professional NFL quarterback. And I think that the pendulum is swinging back, and we're getting to a point where these rookies should be sitting. Because one thing, and I think it's coming as I get older, I'm realizing that these kids, they really are just kids. If you look at any pro athlete in any sport, you look at when they made their debut at say 21 or 22 versus, when they were a veteran at 28 to 30, you realize, holy shit, like he had no beard, he had like no jaw, he was like a tiny person. And then 6 years later, he's got more muscle, he looks like a man, all that stuff. And when you look at these quarterbacks, I feel the same way. And I really feel it at the quarterback position more than anywhere else. I feel like when you come in as an alignment, you're either big and you have the skill or you're not. If you're a receiver at this point, these receivers are coming in so polished because they're going to wide receiver camps from the time that they're 6 and they're specializing in that position. And, everybody's like a route running god these days. They can step in and, they may not produce and be 1,000-yard guys right away, but, they can hang and they can, cross up these cornerbacks and do everything. But these quarterbacks coming in with they're lacking the skill set in high school and in college. I feel like they're getting by way too much on their natural ability, and spacing in some of these schemes that really open up the field. And you got the wider hash marks, and you're facing against guys that might be accountants or car salesmen, when they graduate or things like that. And then you get to the pros where all these guys are the best players from where they came from and they can't hang. And I think that if we can just start to be a little more patient and give coaches some time to actually develop these players without worrying about being fired and not labeling a guy a bust because he didn't play in his first year, I think that that'll be better for football overall. We have veterans that step in place when a rookie quarterback, look at Bryce, and it's tough to say now because Bryce Young might just be bad, but when Bryce Young hurt his ankle early last season and Andy Dalton stepped in, Andy Dalton threw for over 300 yards and multiple touchdowns, and I'm pretty sure the Panthers won that game. Adam Thielen had 140 yards and a touchdown, and a veteran quarterback that was good and maybe had his time as a starter before he got, relegated to the bench. I think a lot of times they end up being better than, some of these rookies right out of the gate. So if you're trying to win a game, why not just play that veteran? You're probably a bad team anyways if you're leaning on a rookie quarterback, and just let the guy develop. So I think that that's what we need to start doing with the rookie quarterbacks. We just need to be more patient, and we need to accept that guys like CJ Stroud are outliers when they're able to step in and put together those types of rookie seasons. But even, a guy like Tua. Tua was so bad for his first couple of years, and people were saying, oh, he's not going to be the starter in 2 years, do all that. And then he gets into a system that works for him. He gets some receivers actually around him, and he gains that confidence and all the things that he learned, and he's able to take that step. We've seen guys like Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and Geno Smith. And, Geno was a second round pick, but, top three guys like Baker and Darnold, they're starting to have this comeback in their careers. It's like, yeah, you put a young, unpolished quarterback onto a dog shit team that was so bad they had to pick in the top three. And then you're getting mad when this guy, can't make it happen with what he's given, whether they have a bad coach or a bad supporting cast. And then they become veteran quarterbacks. Like I'm saying, they turn 27 and they've seen it all. They made a few trips. They've worked with a few different coaching staffs, and they learn things, and they're able to step in and become these like great guys. Baker Mayfield's playing like an MVP candidate right now, and Darnold's maybe not quite at that point, but he's got 4 touchdowns through 2 games. He's slinging it to Justin Jefferson. So let's just be a little more patient. And I think part of it too, beyond the rookie stuff, is we need to bring back the preseason because. Okay, we cut it from 4 games to 3 games, and that's fine. I don't have much of an issue with that. But I thought part of that was to get these teams to play. But so many of these teams now, they're benching their starters. And as a result, we're seeing, some of the worst football imaginable in the first week of the season. And that's happened in the last 2 years. I don't have the stat in front of me, but, passing touchdowns are way down in week one of the last 2 years. And, it carries over into week two. And then once you get to week 3 and 4, we're starting to see, we'll start to see these teams catch up and things will get back to normal. But it's like, why wouldn't you want to just go into the season? You don't have to play a full preseason game. But I thought we were paying these guys a ton of guaranteed money with the idea that, hey, you're set with your money now. Now you don't have to worry about getting hurt and losing out on that cash. You have the money, go out there, play free, get those reps in, and be ready to go for week one. Why are teams getting comfortable with the fact that it's like, yeah, we're going to suck for the first 2 weeks of the season, and then we're just going to like hopefully figure it out? I don't know. To me, I would think that going into a regular season, you would want to just, be a little more polished. You shouldn't be, having to figure out formations and plays and all, situational stuff on the fly in the season. You should come in prepared. Just play a couple goddamn drives each game. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But, now a lot of people are talking about, the shell coverages and things like that. And, sure, that's valid, but that's how sports goes, right? When things start to swing one way, there's somebody that says, well, hey, why don't we try doing this thing and going against the grain? And all of a sudden they have an advantage, and then teams catch on to that and they start doing it. And then the pendulum swings back. And then people say, okay, well, they're passing a ton. Now the boxes are light. Let's run the ball. And then defenses start to shift and they start to stop the run. It's like, all right, now let's spread it out and let's throw it. And, it keeps going back and forth like that. But I do think that whole complaint about the shell coverages and everything, I think it just comes down to what I was saying earlier about players just not coming in and being ready. They're not able to, look at an offense and identify everything that they need to identify and make the changes that they need to change. But it's like, they're defenses want to keep the play in front of them now. They want to limit the big play. And a lot of these quarterbacks aren't able to take advantage of that. And, I just look back and I understand that, the names I'm about to say are all, surefire Hall of Famers in my mind. I think the first three, no doubt. And I think the others, I don't really think they can be argued. But, that era of the Brady, the Manning, the Breeze, Rivers, Big Ben, even Rodgers, who's still around, those guys are so good at just taking what the defense is giving to them. They can really play quarterback. Those are guys that can play quarterback. They're not athletes playing quarterback. They are quarterbacks. And, that just like wouldn't be an issue here. Brady would probably thrive if this is what was happening. If like defenses were only giving him, underneath routes and short stuff, and he had to rely on some yak. Brady would have guys in motion all the time. He'd be changing out, the routes and doing all that. But he would totally take advantage of that. He'd be licking his lips, seeing these opportunities. So I think there's just a lot of things to figure out. I feel like we're getting lazy with the quarterback development, and I think that if we can start putting an emphasis on being able to actually diagnose these things and take advantage of what the defense is giving us, I think that that'll make a massive, massive difference. All right, let's get into my first 2 week reactions. But first, let's have a word from our sponsor, Easy Peasy Moving and Service. Brains, brawn, and true professionalism. That's Easy Peasy Moving and Service. Muscle for hire, moving, assembly, errands, you name it. They will do it. Easy Peasy is a multi-service team. If you need something, just ask. All right. We'll see how quick this goes. I do not want to take this. I do not want this to drag on, take forever. I do have thoughts on every team. I might skip around a little bit. Some teams I don't necessarily need to talk about, but I do want to check in every 2 weeks and kind of get a pulse check on the league and then kind of see where everybody's at. So I think I'm going to go division by division, kind of split it up that way. And maybe just kind of go down the standings that way, talk about the divisional leaders and everything like that. But we'll start at the top with LeBron haters. We'll start with Team Two Pins, the 1.5 time champions. They are 2-0. They had an insane week one, Stevenson Kamara Cup. They had 64 combined touches between the three of them. Daniels had 2 rushing TDs. Jaden Reed had some massive plays, but I was a little concerned. They had 8.6 bench points. They played the perfect lineup, totally efficient. But that's the thing, is that I don't really know what they have on this bench. And week 2 was kind of coming back down to earth. They had 43 points from Kamara, and they only put up 106 points total. They had less than 23 bench points. So, with Cup missing time, who's going to take his spot in the lineup? You could bump Reed into the wide receiver. That opens up a flex spot. But all of a sudden, we're talking about Jalen Warren, Polk, Hill, Taysom talking about. Those are probably his best and only 3 options for that flex spot. And he's still starting Tyler Lockett in the flex, who knows? We just saw JSN possibly have his breakout game and maybe take over as the wide receiver too. We know Lockett's kind of been aging and everybody's been betting on that fall off for the last few years. It's almost become like the fantasy version of the Brady cliff. But I do think that that's going to be an issue now with these injuries. And bye weeks were already going to be a problem. They're going to be more of a problem now. And if there's any more injuries to that roster, they're in really dangerous territory. I'm just not sure where those points are going to come from if they have to deal with that, especially on the bye weeks. They got Penix as their QB3, so that's going to be tough whenever they have to lose a quarterback during those buys. So their starters, they're going to have to carry all season if they want to sustain any success. We know that they can put up those massive numbers. We haven't seen the best from Jamar Chase yet, for example, but they're going to have to play perfect. Once we get to week 4, week 5, and beyond, when those bye weeks start to kick in, he's going to need some good scheduling luck and a lot of luck with his matchup. So we got the Vibers, his trade partner. They had a bad week 1. They had a good week 2. I feel like that's going to kind of be the narrative for their whole season. It's just going to be up and down, back and forth, everything like that. They're starting Alan Lazard. That's ugly. That is very, very ugly. AJ Brown is going to be out for some time. Aaron Jones just got hurt. We know how that goes with him. He's missing 3 to 4 games every season, it feels like. They're going to have to nail their lineup every week. They're going to have to overachieve if they want to win any money. I wish them the best of luck. They made some trades. They wanted to get younger. They definitely did that. There's no denying it. So we'll see where those things go. They got rid of the best fantasy quarterback that we've seen in forever. So I don't know how they're going to fare. I think they're still going to win some games, but I think ultimately they're going to end up being stuck in the middle, like we like to talk about with some of those teams every season. Sfogliatella, 155 points in 2 weeks. That's not great. That is not great. You can have a bad week 1. It happens. Happened to me. Happened to a few other teams, especially with how this quarterback play is down, and we're not seeing touchdowns and everything like that. But 2 weeks is tough, and he's 1-1 now. He was gifted the McMorrow win early in the season. Baker might be a fantasy stud, but Tua just got hurt. I think like Aiden O'Connell is maybe the backup quarterback. That running back room had a lot of hype coming into the season. I feel like it's kind of flopped so far. Zamir White, he's competing with Madison. They're starting in his lineup together. Gus Edwards is losing out to Dobbins. Tajay Spears is losing out to Pollard. Chase Brown is losing out to Moss. The fact that none of those guys were able to take the step has just been absolutely killer early in the season for Amaral. So, he's still got Neighbors, the clear star. Tank Dell just feels like the odd man out with Stephon Diggs in that lineup right now. And when he leaves in free agency, assuming he does, maybe things can change. I mean, he's still getting good looks. I just don't think he's going to be a dependable player, Tank Dell, this year. And then you got veterans like McLaurin and Amari Cooper, who I don't know if it's them. I don't know if it's the quarterback play, but, they're not getting it done either. So, Laporta even, he feels like almost an afterthought in that Lions offense with J-Mo having his breakout. So it's just been every single player in that lineup besides Neighbors and Baker is just completely flopping relative to their expectation going into the year. That's not a good recipe for success. If I were Amaral, especially with Tua being out now, I would just start selling. Why wait? Get a head start. Maybe see, what Baker could be worth. Everybody's always looking for a quarterback, everything like that. But I think it's worth seeing what you can get for a guy like Baker. Of course, you're going to be holding on to Neighbors. You might have to wait a little bit for the bounce back from Cooper and Terry. But, if you can get a good price for them, maybe it's worth moving them as well. But I say just don't wait. Just get into it. Accept that that's where your team's at now. You can still be frisky, but you're really hoping to catch teams on off weeks. Maybe a team's getting killed by the bye. Maybe they just have a bad week. It happens, right? And if a team scores over 100 points, though, I think it's going to be tough for Amaral to get many wins this year. And then wrapping up the division, McMorrow. Never much to say, especially when it comes to the current season. But I will say, he's got some interesting guys at receiver. I don't know if they'll ever be fantasy stars or anything, but Wicks, McMillan, Downs, Naylor, Tolbert, Wandale, they'll pop on the weeks that they get touchdowns. Without them, I don't know if they're going to be too fantasy relevant, but those are some young guys, that I still think can make some noise. And I don't know if they'll ever be a true wide receiver one, but I think all those guys at some point will end up being people at the very worst you'd be happy to have on your bench. So Bigsby and Irving, they might have larger roles than expected going into it. Carson Steele might get an opportunity now with Pacheco out. But I mean, besides that, there's really not much to get excited about. I would like to see him maybe start buying a little bit, especially he has so many of those first. I don't know why he has 8 or 9 first round picks. Who cares if you're good or bad this season when that's the case? I don't understand it. Just try and get some good players. If you score a few extra points, it doesn't matter because any team that might benefit from that, you probably have their first round pick anyways. So I'd like to see him become a buyer sooner rather than later. I don't want to wait too long. I know he had his championship money in week one and in year one. So maybe he feels like this league's a bit of a gimmick to him and he can do whatever he wants, try to acquire all those. But, who wants to suck for that long? Try and make some moves, try and get a little more competitive, try and fast track that. When you have all those picks, you can do it. We saw Pete acquire all those picks and look at him. He's already working his way into being a contender. So, that's all. Those are all my thoughts on the LeBron haters division. Let's move on to Gabagool. So right now, first place in that division, it's the most athletic Suns. They are in the mix for most points behind 2 pins. I don't know if they're second or if they're sixth, but I think it's like 4 different teams that are all right around 240. And we're talking about less than a point, give or take. So they're 2-0. Their running backs are doing their things as expected. Mike Evans, he's in for another big year. Devontae Smith is always good. But he could see even more opportunity with A.J. Brown missing extended time. And that could be his opportunity to maybe take over as the guy in that room. I mean, A.J. Brown with his physical tools and his downfield ability, it might be tough to truly overcome that. But I think carving out an even bigger role for himself on top of what he's already got. We know that he just got that contract in the offseason anyways. I think that will be good. And it's definitely helpful for the Suns to have those extra opportunities. And Rashee Rice, he was obviously great to wrap up the season last year. I was maybe a little nervous coming into it. I thought that his, ADOT was pretty concerning. He's a screen merchant. But he seems to be a pretty good yak guy, and he seems to be Mahomes' number 1 target by a pretty wide margin right now. So, it seems like he's safer this year. I don't know if he'll actually be playing next year. He could be in prison, so that could be a concern. Maybe they're trying to get as much use out of him as they can while they have him. But those three receivers paired with those three running backs has been insane for them to start the season. And then, likely had the good start to the season in week one, kind of came back down to earth in week two. And I do think that people maybe forgot that Mark Andrews was in like a pretty bad car accident right before the season started, and maybe that had something to do with him, being a little non-existent in week one. But I do think that we're not going to see those huge weeks out of Likely like we saw in week one. I don't think that's going to be the norm. So I do think that they still do have an issue at tight end. We'll see if they can maybe stream one off of waivers. Maybe Likely can still be, a decent starting option, just not as dominant as he looked in week one. But and there's also a chance that the Chiefs might just be bad against tight ends because he had that week one game, and then Mike Gesicki had 90 yards against them. So that could just be a Chief matchup thing, anyways. But I just worry about the depth. The bench stinks. Goff, Gibbs, and Devontae all have the same bye. Etienne and Rice have the same bye. Those are going to be some brutal weeks for them. Their running backs behind those three, it's Zach Moss and then Jamal Williams. I think. I don't even know. I think Jamal Williams might be on waivers right now. He might have just gotten picked up. I'm not sure. But, and then wide receiver, it's like Brandon Cooks and Brian Thomas. And I just don't know if those are necessarily, reliable week to week guys. So I think this is another team that, I think that when they're playing at full strength, they're going to put up a ton of points, and that'll probably be enough to keep them afloat. But I do think that some of those bye weeks, and if injuries start to kick in, could get a little ugly for them. But I do think that overall, over the course of the season, they're just going to have enough boom weeks that it's not going to matter. And they're going to be, maybe they can't hold on to that record and hold on to that divisional lead, but I do think that they should be, locked in for maybe that fifth or sixth wild card spot at the worst. At the worst, I'm talking about. So, don't take any offense to that. And then moving down, we got Slippery Pete, 1-1. It was good for him to get that win. An 0-2 start for him coming off of, this rebuild and all the confidence coming in and all the moves he made. That would have been brutal. But, it's been tough. The Puka injury, that's a bit devastating. This could be one of those things where even if he comes back, he might just not be very great for the whole season. I mean, we're looking at 6 to 8 weeks, I think, with his injury. And then, it's a knee thing. And, you got to come back and try and get up to full speed on that. I just feel like by the time he comes back, it's not going to be enough time left for him to really get back to what he was last season. Ant might suck. Obviously, he's still putting up one. Week one, he put up the big points. Last week, he didn't do too much, but he's been a very bad passer. I know that, he got, hurt by a handful of drops last week, against the Packers and everything, but let's not pretend like that's the only time that he's not looked like a great passer. You can say, oh, your box score watching if you point out the 50% completion percentage last week. Going into the year, that was the concern for him. He was not completing passes at a high rate, and he might still get those big plays, and he can still do it with his legs. But I think at some point, it can only get you so far. And if it's not translating into wins, people are going to get frustrated a bit. And you need to be able to pass when it matters in this league. And if you can't drop back and be reliable there, no matter how good you are on the ground, no matter how good you are in fantasy, it will catch up to you. So I do think that that's something to keep an eye on. Jonathan Taylor, his usage is weird. Garrett Wilson, he hasn't really been showing it. Where's Garrett Antonio at? He's not scoring touchdowns yet. He's not having the big yardage games. And he's like the only receiving option in that besides Breece Hall. But Breece Hall is like, competing like toe to toe with him for that lead receiver role. So, there are just weird concerns with this team so far. They've put up good points. They're pushing for that, second spot in points for, but I see tiny little red flags that I think are worth addressing. And the thing with Pete's team is that all he's got is that 2026 first. So unless he wants to sell one of those stars, because he doesn't really have guys on his bench that he can pair with that pick or anything like that. So, if he wants to go after it, it's like, what can you really get for that 26 first? Like one more good player? I just don't know if that's enough to fully build out this team and complete it and give him the depth and the resources to survive the bye weeks and to survive the injuries. I mean, the fact that we're already seeing injuries like this for him right now, it's a little concerning. I mean, Kyron Williams even, right? He traded that second rounder to get him. And okay, he had a touchdown in week one. I don't think he had one last week. Correct me if I'm wrong if he did. But either way, I mean, he's averaging like 2 yards per carry. Every like metric for him on the ground is bad. And the Rams injury bug just feels like a bad omen. I mean, we saw Kyron get hurt last year. I'm not, predicting that or anything. I almost wouldn't want to play for the Rams right now. It's like, why is everybody getting hurt? It's not just Puka and Cup. It's guys on the defense, guys on the offensive line. I would not feel really good if I was leaning on a Rams player. I would not feel confident that he's going to stay healthy. So it is a little concerning. But yeah, I mean, this is a team, again, just like the Suns, where it's like at full strength. I mean, they're going to put up those weeks. I'm just curious to see if they can survive when guys are out, whether it's injury or bye, what those weeks look like and what that does to their standing when we're looking at it. All right, on to the reigning and defending champs, the Zits. It was a tough loss last week, but it's been a solid start, overall to the title defense. Barkley and Jacobs are horses. Monty really is too. They don't have really anything behind those three, at running back. But, volume is king in fantasy. And those are three guys that, especially Barkley and Jacobs, they're getting a ton of touches. Monty, he's still getting those goal line looks and everything like that. They're going to get touches. They're going to get touchdowns. And when you have good running backs like that, that does so much for your fantasy team. It really does. So, having them, that is massive. Need Ayuk to get into game shape soon, start picking it up. You need a consistent flex player too. Can Worthy, can JMO, can, maybe even Alec Pierce be that? We'll see. Can Romeo Dobbs step up? Who knows how long Jordan Love will actually be out? It sounds like he could play this week. So we'll see. But yeah, it just feels like if they can't find that second flex player to rely on, and I mean, JMO's put up 2 massive weeks, I feel like it'll be him. I would like to believe that it would be him. I'm rooting for him. So, if he can get that and he can maybe add some depth and just be able to get some more guys in the mix, then I like the Zits to keep it going. I mean, he's got Josh Allen. Geno Smith is looking more like he did 2 years ago. He had that huge game against the Pats last week. So, Bryce getting benched is tough, but, he's got 2, good quarterbacks right now. Both of them have late bye weeks, so that gives him a little time to find, a QB3 for weeks 10 and week 12, I believe. So they're very good at full strength. So we'll see how they hold up over the course of the season. But right now, I do think that this is, one of the better, more consistent teams in the league. And then to the next Bowen, we got Go Tigers. Okay start points wise, but they faced 130-point opponents in back-to-back weeks. That's always tough. Jefferson and Zay, they're getting theirs, at least target wise. I know Zay was kind of contained in week 1. Godwin might be a stud in this new scheme. I mean, with Liam Cohen coming over, they were talking about him going back to the slot, being used kind of like Puka Nacua. And I think we're starting to see that. I mean, he's had touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. He's had insane yardage. I think he's second in yards behind Nico Collins maybe right now. Najee and Rachaad White, they're getting a ton of volume, but they're not getting points. They're not getting touchdowns. It's not really doing much. So that is a bit concerning. Caleb Williams has less than 15 points through 2 games. So, like I said with the rookie quarterbacks earlier, it is tough. It's tough to rely on them in real life. It's tough to rely on them in fantasy. So it feels like this is a team that maybe will start to hover in that 95-point range, give or take like 5 points. If they can catch teams on off weeks, then they can definitely get some wins. They can definitely pop for like 110, 120. But I feel like they're just going to start to cycle towards the bottom with each passing week. So we'll see. This is a team we've always had in hell because they're kind of stuck in the middle. And I wouldn't necessarily expect them to buck that trend. So I'm not feeling great about Go Tigers. I think they have great players, but I don't think it's necessarily a great team. So, all right, let's move on to the third division. I guess the least successful division. It's always billed as like the best division in the regular season, but there's about 0 playoff success. I mean, Big Brain, they always won the 3rd place game. That's good for them. Wallace lost the championship last week, but it's really all we got. We don't have many playoff wins as a division for a team, for 4 teams that, have maybe all been pretty good at one point or another. So let's start with Wallace. Great start to the season. Great. But last week was a huge blow. I mean, Tua being out just kills Hill and Waddle, especially with as long as Skylar Thompson is the quarterback there. I don't know what type of move they might make, but it's like if they want to try and be taken seriously, they need to make a move for quarterback soon. Because if you let Skylar Thompson go out and start, you might get like a surprise win for a team that's not ready with that game plan, but it's not going to be good. You're not going to get a lot of wins. So you can't expect him to keep you afloat. So I think they just brought in Snoop Huntley. Maybe he can do something, but I mean, come on. What are we talking about? Okay, the guy made the Pro Bowl once. He played 3 games that year, and he somehow made the Pro Bowl. It's absolutely insane. But Pacheco's probably done for the season. Suddenly, that bench is looking pretty thin, especially at running back. I know he's starting the 4 running backs right now, right? He's got Henry, he's got Breece Hall, he's got James Cook, all 3 great. He's got Ken Walker, great week one, but I mean, even Walker, he already missed a game last week. So, with Pacheco out and then Walker already getting hurt, that bench is like really, really, really thin at running back. So, Lawrence and Nix, they aren't really putting big numbers up on the board. So he's got the picks to make some moves, but who's selling this early into the season? So he might have to wait before, he can be a buyer. And, I don't know, maybe that wait could, cost him a couple games and really hurt him in the long run for this season. So, it's a great start to the season. If he can figure some of those things out, it's going to be a great team. I mean, even now, it's a pretty good team. Still one of the best, but that was just a huge blow. I don't know, how they're going to survive, with Hill and with Waddle, and then, with those running backs starting to get hurt a bit. So, Big Brain LLC 1-1, 2-0. I'm not sure. I didn't write it down. But once again, probably the worst thing that could happen to them because this team is cooked and they just don't realize it, don't want to acknowledge it, anything. The McCaffrey injury was devastating because that was like their only consistent chance at big points, big weeks. So losing him, not having his handcuff and Jordan Mason, that's a tough look. Dobbins, he's always played well when healthy. I don't think that his performance now is that surprising. He's like a career 6 yards per carry guy. The thing is, he just always gets hurt. He tears his Achilles, he tears his ACL, he gets a bone bruise, like all that stuff. He's always missing games. So it just feels like that's inevitable. Not that I'm wishing that upon somebody. DeAndre Swift, he's averaging 2 yards per carry behind that offensive line that's getting 0 push. Debo just went down, with a calf injury. That's a major hit as well. Starting Deshaun Watson and Gardner Minshew in Superflex is nasty. That's disgusting. And okay, Minshew's got a bunch of passing yards. So come on, what are we talking about? The guy's like 28. We know what he is. Okay, Deshaun Watson is bad. That is a bad, bad quarterback. So they got to figure something out. Hopefully Jordan Love can come back for them if they want to have any chance. But just do it. Just do it. How many times do we need to tell them just start selling? Just do it. It's over. It's over for Big Brain. I don't know why they don't want to accept it. It's okay. Just become a seller. Get out in front of it. And don't be the team that is too late to the party, okay? And by the way, how's Cole Kmet doing? What's he got? 5 points in 2 games? What a great trade. Hunter Henry just went insane last week. But, congrats on getting Cole Kmet for Hunter Henry in a pick. They tried to kill me for that take, but they're my buddies. I tried to warn them. I don't know why they got so defensive. I don't know why people get so mad when you just tell them, hey, I don't think this player's that good. Maybe you shouldn't do that. I don't know why people get so defensive over it. I'm looking out for my friends. My bad. I guess that's the last time I ever try to do that again. But if, they're going to have to spend if they want to compete. And I think they're better off just selling with the direction that they've been trending in, year after year. Just do it. Just get it over with. Sell now, get younger. And they have the assets to get good young players now. And you might have to wait a year for those guys to catch up, but just do it. I don't know what they're waiting on. My team, the Slow Stroke Kings. I'm 0-2. What do you want me to say? Very close. Very close to 2-0. I think I'm a combined 10 points away from being 2-0. Tough managerial choices held me back, okay? Hand up. I started Greg Dulcich over George Kittle last week. Okay. I trust my stats. I trust my data. I trust my sheet. I like the read. I like the matchup. I didn't think Kittle had a good matchup. And in my defense, Dulcich did have 8 targets. Okay. It was a solid read. It didn't work out. Maybe I should have considered who the quarterbacks were throwing to my tight ends, but he had 8 targets. What do you want me to do? Okay. I liked his matchup and he got the volume that I was hoping for. He just didn't do anything with it. Okay. So shoot me. Okay. If I started Kittle, I would have won. Whatever. Okay. Levis has been disappointing. But I might have something with Kyler and Darnold. I mean, I don't think Kyler's a surprise at all, but Darnold, I've been waiting on this for 2 years now. And it's really happening. I actually think that he's a good NFL quarterback now. My running backs, they've bbeen killer. I don't need it, but I hope Mixon's ankle isn't too serious. But, Pollard and Robinson, they've really stepped up. They've been awesome to start the year. I'm, probably a month out from getting Jonathan Brooks back, so that'll be a big addition, hopefully. My wide receivers, they've been lacking pretty early, but, big week 2 from Drake, big week 2 from JSN. That feels like positive momentum. I trust my vets to eventually bounce back. I mean, I have good veterans. Let's not act like just because they suck right now that I don't have good receivers on my team. So I think that they're going to figure things out. I think as, Caleb Williams gets more comfortable, DJ Moore can step up. I think Pittman, he's leading the team in targets. I think that those will start to convert a little bit. So I'm not too worried about that. I need them to bounce back. I think that my team right now is a little slept on in this division with Wallace and big brain injuries. I think that I can take advantage of that. I built this team with depth in mind. I want to survive the bye weeks. I want to survive injuries. So an 0-2 start, it's not ideal, but I mean, I think a month from now, things can suddenly be looking a little bit different. So, we'll see. I do think that I'm a dark horse right now. And it's week 2. Okay, we're seeing offenses play bad football. I think that we're going to see scoring take a tick or kick up. In weeks 3, 4, 5, and then moving on from that as teams kind of get their preseason reps out of the way. So we'll see how things play out in the long run. But I feel like I'm one of the best built teams for the course of the season. So I'm hoping that my strategy works out and I can turn that into at least a playoff appearance, and then anything can happen from there. And then we'll wrap it up with the shits. Maybe appropriately so, because that's a bottom feeder. They'll come in last. Well, McMorrow will, but it's appropriate to have the shits last. Okay. They're set at quarterback. They're set at tight end. They're strong but young at receiver. I don't think he should sell his quarterbacks yet either. Not until we at least know what Drake May is. But I think Simcoe just needs to be patient. Okay. Don't rush the sale. If you have one buyer for Lamar or Justin Herbert, then don't sell them. Okay. People do want those players on their team. They might not want to buy right now, but just wait until they do. Okay. You have the leverage when you have quarterbacks like that. So, I think that he just needs to be patient, let his guys develop, accept that he's probably going to suck pretty bad this year. But he's got good guys in place. So I think that he just needs to ride it out, try and play spoiler a little bit, but just be patient. Just be patient. All right. That'll wrap it up for Friends Who Ramble episode 1. I guess this is technically episode 1. This is the 2-week check-in. I want to check in every 2 weeks and get a pulse on the league, see how everything's going. So thank you for listening. Thank you to our sponsors, Sundog Multimedia, Easy Peasy Moving and Service, and I will see you in 2 weeks.